I'm writing this from a hospital bed in Anchorage, and they keep telling me I've been here for 3 weeks, but I know that's wrong. The calendar says it's February. When I drove up to the Whitefall Mountain Resort, it was October. Somewhere between the first snowfall and whatever pulled me out of that place, I lost 4 months of my life. But the memories, those are crystal clear. Every frozen second of them. My name is Marcus David Chen, 36 years old, born in Seattle, but raised in Juneau after my parents divorced when I was 7. I'd been working as a property manager for vacation rentals across the Inside Passage for almost a decade. Good money, flexible schedule, perfect for a guy who never figured out how to be around people for long stretches. But then the company went under in August. Something about the owner embezzling funds. One day I had a career. The next I had a storage unit full of cleaning supplies and a checking account with $847.32. My ex-wife Dana had already taken everything else in the divorce 2 years prior. The house in Douglas, the Subaru, and most of my self-respect. What she couldn't take was our daughter Mia, because the court said weekends and alternating holidays were fair. But weekends require gas money and a functioning vehicle, and my truck's transmission had been making sounds like a dying moose since July. I was 3 months behind on child support when the email came. It landed in my spam folder at 3:33 a.m. on September 29th. I only saw it because I was doom scrolling job boards at that ungodly hour, unable to sleep, watching my bank balance tick down towards zero. Subject: winter caretaker position, immediate start, Whitefall Mountain Resort. Seeking reliable individual for off-season caretaker position at historic ski resort. October through April, $4,500 month plus housing. Duties include basic maintenance, security checks, and property monitoring. Must be comfortable with isolation. Experience with cold weather operations preferred. No internet or cell service on site. Emergency radio provided. Serious inquiries only. Contact Mr. Aldrich Vance, property manager. $4,500 a month for sitting in an empty ski lodge and making sure the pipes don't freeze. That was more than I'd made in my best months doing vacation rentals. It would cover the back child support, the truck repairs, and leave enough to maybe rent a real apartment when winter ended. I should have asked more questions. I should have wondered why the pay was so high, why the email came at such a specific time, why the subject line knew my name even though I'd never applied for anything. But desperate men don't ask questions, they sign contracts. I drove up on October 3rd, following GPS coordinates that took me off the main highway near Girdwood and onto a series of increasingly neglected forest roads. The pavement gave way to gravel, then to packed dirt, then to something that was barely a trail carved between walls of black spruce and hemlock. My truck's headlights carved a tunnel through the darkness, and I remember thinking that the trees looked wrong, too close together, branches intertwined like they were holding hands, or holding something in. The resort appeared suddenly, like it had been waiting just around a corner that hadn't existed a moment before. 1 second I was surrounded by wilderness, the next I was pulling into a massive parking lot buried under 3 inches of early snow, staring up at the Whitefall Mountain Lodge. It was enormous, 3 stories of timber and stone, with a peaked roof that disappeared into the low clouds. The windows were dark, dozens of them, reflecting my headlights back like dead eyes. A ski lift tower rose behind the building, cables disappearing up the mountain into fog. Everything was silent, no birds, no wind, just the tick of my cooling engine and the soft hiss of snow falling. I sat in the truck for a long time, hands on the steering wheel, telling myself this was fine. This was just a job. The creepy atmosphere was just isolation playing tricks on my city-softened mind. Then a light came on in one of the ground floor windows. I grabbed my duffel bag and walked toward the main entrance. The front doors were massive, carved wood with iron hinges, the kind of craftsmanship you don't see anymore. One of them was already open. Inside, the lobby was vast and cold. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, big enough to park my truck in, but it was dark and empty. Leather furniture covered in white sheets sat in clusters around the room like ghosts at a party. A reception desk stretched across the back wall, and behind it, mounted on the timber supports, were dozens of animal heads: elk, moose, bear, wolf, all staring down with glass eyes that caught the dim light from a single lamp on the desk. A man stood behind the reception counter. He was tall and thin, dressed in a charcoal suit that looked older than me. His hair was silver, swept back from a face that had too many angles and not enough curves. His eyes were the pale grey of winter ice, and they didn't blink when he looked at me. He smiled, and his teeth were very white. "Mr. Chen," he said, "you're precisely on time." I hadn't told him when I'd be arriving. I'd only said early October in my reply email. "Mr. Vance," I asked. "Aldrich, please." He gestured to the lamp on the desk. Beside it sat a manila envelope and an old-fashioned brass key on a leather fob. "Your contract and your master key. The lodge has 47 rooms, but you'll only need access to the caretaker's quarters on the second floor, the kitchen, the maintenance shed, and the main heating system in the basement. Everything else is to remain locked." 47 rooms seems like a lot to maintain alone. "You won't be maintaining the rooms," Aldrich said. "You'll be watching them." I laughed nervously. "Watching for what?" He didn't answer. Instead, he slid a second piece of paper across the counter. Heavy stock, cream-colored, with embossed letterhead that read, "White Fall Mountain Resort, EST, 1952. The rules," he said. "Read them carefully. Memorize them before your first night. Your survival depends on it." I picked up the paper. The words were printed in sharp black ink, each rule numbered and precise. "White Fall Mountain Resort, Caretaker Protocols. Your shift begins at sundown and ends at sunrise. During daylight hours, you may move freely through approved areas. After dark, remain in the caretaker's quarters unless responding to a specific protocol. The heating system must be checked at exactly 9 p.m., 1 a.m., and 5 a.m. The basement door will unlock 5 minutes before each check and lock 5 minutes after. Do not be in the basement when the door locks. If you hear music coming from the ballroom on the 3rd floor, do not investigate. The ballroom has been sealed since 1978. There is no music. The ski lift operates automatically between 2 a.m. and 2:47 a.m. Do not look out windows facing the mountain during this time. If you hear the lift chairs passing, count them. There should be exactly 44. If you count more or fewer, do not leave your quarters until sunrise. Room 217 is to remain locked at all times. If you hear knocking from inside, respond by saying, "The mountain is closed" 3 times. Do not open the door. Do not apologize for the inconvenience. The woman in the blue parka will appear at the kitchen window between midnight and 12:17 a.m. She will ask to be let in. She will say she is cold. She is not cold. She is not a woman. Do not make eye contact. Do not respond to anything she says about your daughter. Fresh water must be left in the copper bowl by the fireplace every night before 8 p.m. Empty and refill the bowl each morning. Do not examine what has been drinking from it. The mirrors in the guest bathrooms have been covered for a reason. If you find one uncovered, replace the sheet immediately without looking at the glass. If you have already looked, proceed directly to the caretaker's quarters and do not emerge until you have seen your reflection blink in a normal mirror. The emergency radio connects to the ranger station in Girdwood. Use it only for genuine emergencies. If a voice identifying as Ranger Kowalski responds, end transmission immediately. Ranger Kowalski died in 1987. If the power fails, use the backup generator in the maintenance shed. The path from the lodge to the shed is exactly 127 steps. Count them. If you reach the shed in fewer than 127 steps, return to the lodge immediately. You have not reached the real shed. The service elevator between floors does not exist. If you see elevator doors in any hallway, Do not approach them. They will open if you get too close. Once per week, typically during a new moon, you will hear children laughing outside. Ignore them. There have never been children at this resort. There is no Rule 13. The thing in the basement knows your name. It will try to convince you that you know its name too. You do not. Any name that comes to mind is a trap. If Aldrich Vance returns after sunset, he is not Aldrich Vance. Ask him what year the resort was established. The correct answer is 1952. Any other answer means you must not let him inside. Any other answer means you must survive until dawn alone. Aldrich watched me read. His smile never wavered. Questions, he asked. Is this a joke? The last caretaker asked the same thing. He straightened his tie, a thin strip of black silk. He stopped laughing around week 3. He stopped entirely around week 5. Stopped what? Aldrich tilted his head, and for a moment, just a moment, his neck bent at an angle that shouldn't have been possible. Stopped. I should have left. Right then, right there, I should have gotten in my truck and driven until I hit pavement and cell service and sanity, but $4,500 a month. Mia's smile, the transmission whining like a wounded animal. Where do I sign? I asked. Aldrich's smile widened. His teeth seemed to multiply. The contract is already signed, Mr. Chen. You signed it when you drove through the gates. You signed it when you read the rules. You signed it when you were born. I didn't understand what he meant. I wouldn't for another 6 weeks. He handed me the brass key. It was heavier than it should have been and warm despite the cold room. Your quarters are on the 2nd floor, end of the east hall. There's food in the kitchen, shelf-stable supplies, enough for 6 months. The generator has fuel for the season. The radio is in the maintenance shed. When do I start? He looked at the window. Outside, the last grey light of afternoon was fading into purple dusk. You already have. He walked past me toward the front doors, his footsteps silent on the wooden floor. At the threshold, he paused. One more thing, Mr. Chen. The most important thing, not written on any paper. He turned, and his eyes seemed to glow in the dying light. Do not go up the mountain, no matter what you see, no matter what calls you. The summit belongs to something older than the rules, something that made the rules necessary. Then he stepped outside, and the doors swung shut behind him. I ran to the window. The parking lot was empty. No car, no footprints in the fresh snow. Aldrich Vance had vanished as completely as if he had never existed. The lights in the lobby flickered once, then steadied. I was alone. Night 1. The first check. I found my quarters easily enough. A small apartment at the end of a long, dim corridor on the 2nd floor. It was surprisingly comfortable. A bedroom with a real bed, not a cot. A sitting area with a wood stove, a tiny bathroom, and a kitchenette. The windows faced east, away from the mountain, looking out over an endless expanse of snow-covered forest that disappeared into the darkness. I unpacked my duffel bag. 3 changes of clothes, a photograph of Mia from her 5th birthday, a flashlight, a hunting knife I'd owned since my 20s, the envelope of cash I'd been saving for the truck repair, $340 in worn 20s. 8 LPM, the rules said water in the copper bowl before 8. I found a bowl on the mantel above the cold fireplace in the lobby. It was green with age, tarnished in patterns that almost looked like words. I filled it from the kitchen tap, set it back in place, and tried not to think about what might drink from it. The darkness outside was absolute. No moon, no stars, just a thick cloud cover that would probably stay until spring. The windows reflected the lobby back at me, turning the space into a hall of mirrors. I moved quickly, not looking too closely at my reflection. 9:06 p.m., first heating check. The basement door was in a short hallway behind the reception desk. It was heavy steel, industrial looking, completely out of place in the rustic lodge. When I approached at 8:55, I heard the click of the lock disengaging. The stairs down were concrete, lit by a single bare bulb at each landing. The air grew warmer as I descended, which made no sense. Basements should be cold, and carried a smell like old pennies and wet stone. The boiler room was massive. Ancient machinery hulked in the shadows, pipes running along the ceiling like metal veins. The main heating unit was newer, maybe 20 years old, with digital displays showing temperature and pressure readings. Everything looked normal. Green lights, steady hum. I checked the gauges, made a note in the logbook hanging from a hook on the wall, and turned to leave. That's when I heard it. Marcus. My name, spoken in a whisper that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. The voice was familiar, achingly familiar, but I couldn't place it. Marcus, I'm so cold down here. I ran. I took the stairs 3 at a time, burst through the basement door, and heard it slam and lock behind me with barely a second to spare. The clock on the wall read 9:05. I stood in the hallway, gasping, telling myself it was the pipes. Old buildings make sounds. Isolation plays tricks. I'd heard my own name in the settling of ancient machinery. I almost believed it. At 11:47 p.m., I was in my quarters, trying to read a paperback I'd found in the nightstand, a thriller from the 1980s about Cold War spies, when I heard something tap against the window. Tap, tap, tap. I froze. Second floor. Nothing should be able to reach the window. Tap, tap, tap. I stood slowly, crossing the room with the knife in my hand. The curtains were thin, and beyond them I could see only darkness. No shape, no figure. Tap, tap, tap. I pulled back the curtain. A branch, a thin branch from a birch tree I hadn't noticed outside, swaying in a wind I couldn't feel through the glass. I laughed, shaky and too loud. Just a branch, just a tree, just... The branch bent at an impossible angle and waved at me. I dropped the curtain and didn't sleep. At 12 a.m., I heard the knock at the kitchen window. I'd been standing in the hallway outside my quarters, too wired to sit still, when the sound drifted up from the ground floor. A gentle knock, like someone asking politely to be let in. Rule 6, the woman in the blue parka. I crept down the stairs, telling myself I just needed to see. I wouldn't respond. I wouldn't engage. I just needed to confirm that the rules were real, that I wasn't going insane. The kitchen was dark. I turned off all the lights to save generator fuel, and the only illumination came from the emergency exit signs casting a red glow over the stainless steel counters and hanging pots. The window above the sink faced the parking lot. Someone was standing outside. She was beautiful, young, maybe early 20s, with long dark hair that spilled over the hood of her blue parka. Her skin was pale, almost luminous in the darkness, and she was smiling at me through the glass. She knocked again, soft, patient. "Please," she said, her voice muffled but audible. "It's so cold out here. I got lost on the trail. My phone died. Please let me in." She looked real. She looked human. She looked like she was freezing to death. I reached for the window latch. She will say she is cold. She is not cold. She is not a woman. I stopped. Her smile widened slightly. "Marcus. It's Marcus, right? I know about your daughter. I know about Mia. She misses you. She's been calling for you. Don't you want to see her?" My blood turned to ice. "How do you know that name?" I whispered. Her head tilted, not the way a human tilts their head, more like a video glitching, her neck bending in discrete jerky increments. "I know everything about you, Marcus David Chen. I know about the divorce, about the money you owe, about the accident you caused when you were 19, the one you never told anyone about. The girl's name was Sarah. She died on impact. You drove away. I backed up, knocking into the counter. That's not possible. Let me in," she said, and now her voice wasn't muffled at all. It was inside the room, inside my head, echoing in the hollow spaces behind my eyes. Let me in and I'll make it all go away. The guilt, the debt, the loneliness. Let me in, Marcus. I squeezed my eyes shut. I don't see you. I don't hear you. You're not real. I'm the realest thing on this mountain. When I opened my eyes, she was gone. The kitchen window was frosted over, but on the inside, on the glass, written in condensation that shouldn't have been there, were 3 words. See you soon. I ran back to my quarters and barricaded the door. 1 a.m., second heating check. I didn't want to go. Every fiber of my being screamed to stay in my room, to let the pipes freeze, to huddle under the blankets until dawn. But the rules were clear, and I was starting to understand that breaking the rules was worse than following them. The basement was different this time. The temperature had dropped. I could see my breath, and the smell was stronger. Copper and wet stone and something else now. Something organic, something rotting. The machinery was working. Green lights, steady hum. But standing in the far corner, just outside the reach of the single bare bulb, was a shape. It was tall, taller than any person should be. Its outline was wrong. Too many angles, limbs that bent in directions that made my stomach lurch. It didn't move. It didn't speak. It just watched. I walked to the heating unit, checked the gauges, and made my note in the logbook. My hand was shaking so badly I could barely write. The shape in the corner whispered, I know your name, Marcus. Do you know mine? The thing in the basement knows your name. It will try to convince you that you know its name too. You do not. A name rose in my mind, unbidden. An old name. A name that tasted like smoke and grave dirt on my tongue. I didn't say it. I walked up the stairs backward, never taking my eyes off the shape. It never moved. But just before the door closed, I saw it smile. It had too many teeth. Night 1 continued. The ski lift, 2 a.m., arrived like a held breath finally released. I was sitting in my quarters, back against the wall, knife in one hand and flashlight in the other. The wood stove crackled softly, the only sound in the building that felt real. I'd pushed the dresser against the door after the basement. I checked the window locks 3 times. Then I heard it. Clunk. Whir. Clunk. The ski lift. Rule 4. The ski lift operates automatically between 2 a.m. and 2:47 a.m. Do not look out windows facing the mountain. My quarters faced east, away from the mountain. I was safe. I just had to count the chairs. Clunk. Whir. Clunk. The sound was rhythmic, mechanical, almost soothing if you didn't think about what it implied. An abandoned ski lift running by itself in the middle of the night, carrying nothing up a mountain that something ancient called home. I started counting. 1, 2, 3. The chairs passed the tower outside with a metallic groan. Each one sounded different. Some squeaked, some rattled, some made a sound like a sigh. 12, 13, 14. I pressed my palms over my ears, trying to focus only on the count, trying not to think about what might be riding those chairs up into the darkness. 27, 28, 29. Something scratched at my window. I didn't look. I kept counting. 34, 35, 36. The scratching became more insistent. It sounded like fingernails on glass. It sounded like something wanted in. 41, 42, 43. Please be 44. Please be 44. 44. Silence. The lift stopped. The scratching stopped. Everything stopped. I sat perfectly still, barely breathing, waiting for something else to happen. But the night had gone quiet. Even the wind had died. I checked my watch. 2:47 a.m. exactly. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. Night 2. The journal dawn came grey and reluctant, filtering through the clouds like dirty water through a sieve. I'd survived my first night. The rules said I could move freely during daylight hours, so I decided to explore. Not the sealed areas. I wasn't stupid enough to tempt fate, but the common spaces, the kitchen, the lobby, the hallways I'd need to navigate in the dark. That's when I found a journal. It was wedged behind the reception desk, shoved into a gap between the wood paneling and the wall. A leather-bound notebook, water-stained and swollen, filled with handwriting that changed styles every few pages. The first entry was dated October 15th, 1978. Day 1, arrived at Whitefall. Mr. Vance showed me around. Strange man, too polite, like he's apologizing for something in advance. The rules are ridiculous, but the pay is good. Ellen needs the surgery and insurance won't cover it. I can do this. I flipped forward. Day 12, saw the woman at the window again. She looks like Ellen. Same hair, same eyes. But Ellen is in Anchorage, waiting for me. This thing isn't Ellen. It knows things about Ellen though. Things only I would know. I didn't let it in. More pages. Different handwriting now. Smaller, more cramped. March 1983. I am the 4th caretaker. The 3rd one is still here, but he doesn't talk anymore. He just sits in the lobby and stares at the fireplace. His eyes are wrong. Something is living inside them now. I feed him soup and pretend everything is fine. The handwriting changed again. November 1991. There is no escape. I've tried. The roads loop back. The forest goes on forever. The only way out is through. Through the winter, through the rules, through whatever waits at the top of that goddamn mountain. The thing in the basement told me its name. I almost said it back. Don't say the name. I turned to the final pages. The handwriting here was wild, barely legible, pressed so hard into the paper that some words had torn through. February 1994. Aldrich came back after sunset. I asked him the year. He said 1847. He said 1847. I didn't let him in. He stood outside all night. When the sun rose, he was gone. But there were marks on the door. Claw marks. Burn marks. He almost got through. The ballroom is singing again. I went up to listen. Just to listen. The music is so beautiful. It sounds like my mother's voice. It sounds like forgiveness. The final entry was a single line. I'm going up the mountain. I need to see what's at the top. I need to understand. There were no more entries. I closed the journal and sat on the cold floor of the lobby for a long time, staring at the copper bowl on the mantel. It was empty now. I dumped the water that morning without looking at it, but there were marks around the rim. Small marks, like something with too many teeth had been lapping at the water. Night 2, the ballroom. The second night started badly and got worse. I did everything right. Water in the bowl at 7:45 p.m. Heating check at 9 p.m. The shape was there again, closer this time, still smiling. Doors locked, windows checked, curtains drawn. 11 p.m. I was in my quarters, reading another chapter of the spy thriller when the music started. It drifted down from somewhere above me. A waltz, I think. Something elegant and old, with strings and piano. The kind of music that belonged in a movie about doomed aristocrats. Rule 3. If you hear music coming from the ballroom on the 3rd floor, do not investigate. The ballroom has been sealed since 1978. The music swelled. It was beautiful. Heartbreakingly beautiful. It made me think of my wedding day, of Dana in her white dress, of the way she looked at me before everything fell apart. I stood up. Don't. I walked to the door. The rules are clear. I pushed the dresser aside. You're going to die. I stepped into the hallway. The music grew louder as I climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. The corridor up here was different. Narrower, darker, the walls covered in faded wallpaper that might have been red once. Sconces lined the hall, but they weren't lit. The only illumination came from under a door at the far end, the ballroom. Golden light spilled from the crack beneath the door, warm and inviting. The music was coming from inside. Violins now, soaring and sweet. I could hear laughter too, the clink of glasses, the murmur of conversation. I put my hand on the doorknob. It was warm. Marcus. A voice from behind me. I spun around. The hallway was empty, but standing at the far end near the stairs was a figure, tall, thin, wearing a charcoal suit, Aldrich Vance. What year was the resort established? I asked, my voice cracking. He smiled. Too wide. 1847. My blood froze. No, I whispered. It was 1952. The resort was established in 1952. His smile didn't waver. Let me in, Marcus. Open the ballroom. Join the party. It's been so long since we've had a guest. I backed away, pressing myself against the ballroom door. The wood felt warm against my spine. The music inside was louder now, faster, almost frantic. The thing wearing Aldrich's face took a step toward me, then another. Its movements were wrong, too smooth, like it was gliding rather than walking. You're not real, I said. You're not him. I'm the realest thing on this mountain, it said, and I recognized those words. The woman in the blue parka had said them, the same exact phrase. I ran. I sprinted down the hallway, past the not Aldrich, down the stairs, through the second floor corridor, into my quarters. I slammed the door, shoved the dresser back, and piled everything I could find against the barricade. The footsteps stopped outside my door. Knock, knock, knock. Marcus, Aldrich's voice, perfectly calm. Marcus, open the door. I just want to talk. I didn't answer. I know about the girl Marcus, Sarah Holloway, 19 years old. You hit her on Route 7 outside Juneau on the night of August 14th, 2007. Blood alcohol 0.09. You called 911 from a payphone and drove away. You've never told anyone. I pressed my hands over my ears. I can make it go. Away, Marcus. The guilt, the nightmares. Open the door and I'll give you absolution. You're not real, I whispered. You're not real. You're not real. The knocking stopped. Through my fingers, I heard the voice change. It became lighter, younger. Daddy, Mia's voice. Daddy, I'm scared. The bad man is out here. Please open the door. I squeezed my eyes shut. Tears ran down my cheeks. Please, Daddy. I'm so cold. I didn't open the door. At 5 a.m., the morning check was due. I waited until the last possible moment, then sprinted to the basement, checked the gauges, and sprinted back. The shape in the corner was right next to the boiler this time. Close enough that I could see details. It wasn't humanoid anymore. It was a mass of angles and shadows, constantly shifting, like looking at a broken kaleidoscope. But in the center of it was a face, my face, smiling. I made it back to my quarters with 30 seconds to spare. When dawn finally came, I wept with relief. Day 3, the photographs. I spent the daylight hours searching for more information. The journal had mentioned previous caretakers, at least 4 before the 1994 writer. I needed to know what happened to them. I needed to know if anyone had ever escaped. The resort's office was behind the reception desk, through a door marked staff only. It was unlocked, technically an approved area, and inside I found what I was looking for. Filing cabinets, decades of records. I pulled open the drawer labeled personnel and found folder after folder of employment records. Each one contained a photograph, a contract, and a termination report. The first file was dated 1952. Employee, Harold Birch. Position, winter caretaker. Start, date, October 1st, 1952. Termination date, February 12th, 1953. Reason, went up the mountain. The photograph showed a middle-aged man with a kind face and worried eyes. I flipped through more files, dozens of them. The termination reasons were all the same. Went up the mountain, opened room 217. Went up the mountain, answered the basement, went up the mountain. The most recent file was dated 2019. Employee, Daniel Kowalski. Position, winter caretaker. Start. Date, October 15th, 2019. Termination date, January 3rd, 2020. Reason, went up the mountain. Daniel Kowalski, the name was familiar. Rule 9. If a voice identifying as Ranger Kowalski responds, end transmission immediately. Ranger Kowalski died in 1987, but this was a different Kowalski, a caretaker, not a ranger, and he died, or terminated, in 2020. I looked at his photograph. He was young, maybe mid-20s, with a scruffy beard and tired eyes. He looked like me, like every desperate person who'd taken this job thinking the money was too good to question. At the bottom of his file, someone had written in red ink, he almost made it. Spring was 3 months away, but they showed him his sister, and he followed her up the mountain. They always follow eventually. I put the files back and closed the drawer. There was one more thing in the office, a map framed on the wall showing the resort and the surrounding terrain. The ski runs were marked in blue, the hiking trails in green. But at the very top of the mountain, where the summit should be, someone had scratched out the topographical lines and written a single word in what looked like dried blood. Her night free. Room 217. I don't remember walking to room 217. One moment I was in my quarters, staring at the wall, trying not to think about the photograph of Daniel Kowalski. The next moment, I was standing in front of a door on the second floor, halfway down the west corridor. The door was ordinary, wooden, painted white, with a brass number plate reading 217. But there was something wrong with it. The wood seemed to pulse, like it was breathing. The brass numbers glinted in the emergency lighting, even though there was no light source to create a reflection. I hadn't meant to come here. I hadn't even known where room 217 was. From inside, I heard knocking. Knock, knock, knock. Soft at first, polite, then harder. Knock, knock, knock. A voice called out, muffled but clear. Hello? Is someone there? Please, I've been stuck in here for so long. I can't find a door. I knew the rule. The mountain is closed. 3 times. The mountain is closed, I said. Knock, knock, knock. Please, I can hear you. The mountain isn't closed. I can see the lights. The lift is running. Why won't you let me out? The mountain is closed. The knocking became frantic. The door shuddered in its frame. The brass numbers began to glow. First red, then white hot. Let me out. I've been in here for 40 years. Please. The mountain is closed. Silence. The door stopped moving. The numbers cooled. Then from inside, a different voice. Small. Young. Daddy, is that you? My heart stopped. Daddy, I'm in here. The lady put me in here. She said you'd come get me if I waited. Mia, please open the door, Daddy. I want to go home. My hand moved toward the doorknob. Rule 5, do not open the door. Please, Daddy, I miss you so much. My fingers brushed the brass. It was cold, so cold it burned. Daddy, please, I'm scared. I yanked my hand back. You're not Mia, I said, my voice shaking. Mia is in Juneau with her mother. You're not my daughter. The voice changed. It became deep, ancient, filled with gravel and hate. Not yet, but she will be if you don't open this door. We'll take her, Marcus. We'll bring her here and put her in this room and let her scream for you forever. Open the door and we'll let her stay free. Open the door and save your daughter. I backed away, tears streaming down my face. Open the door, Marcus. Open it or we take your bloodline. Every Chen for 10 generations. We'll put them all in this room. I ran. I don't remember getting back to my quarters. I don't remember the 1 a.m. check or the 5 a.m. check. I must have done them. I was still alive, but my memory of the rest of that night is a blur of terror and tears. When dawn came, from Mi Dao, when dawn came, Wan Pin, I found a new note slipped under my door. It was written on the same cream-colored paper as the rules. The handwriting was elegant, old-fashioned. You're doing well, Marcus. Better than most. But you need to understand what you're protecting. Come to the lobby at noon. I'll explain everything. AV. I didn't know if I could trust it. Aldrich had been the thing in the hallway. Aldrich had tried to make me open the ballroom, but I needed answers. At noon, I went to the lobby. Aldrich Vance was waiting by the fireplace. What year was the resort established? I demanded before he could speak. 1952, he said calmly. Founded by the Vance family after the war. Built on land that the Dena'ina people called the mountain where nothing wakes up. We didn't listen to them. We should have. It was the right answer, but that didn't mean anything. The rules said to ask if he returned after sunset. This was noon. What are you? I asked. The caretaker of the caretakers, he said. I've been here since the beginning, since the thing at the top of the mountain woke up and started calling people. I manage the rules. I recruit the witnesses. I try to keep the balance. What balance? He gestured to the copper bowl on the mantle. The mountain is a doorway, Marcus. Not a physical door, a spiritual one. Something on the other side wants to come through. Something old, something hungry. The resort was built to seal the door, but it's not sealed. There are things in this building. The woman in the parka, the thing in the basement, the ballroom. Leakage, Aldrich said. The seal isn't perfect. Small things slip through. Echoes, fragments, predators that hunt at the edges. He paused. And occasionally the door cracks wider. When that happens, we need someone here. A living witness, a human anchor to hold reality in place. Why me? He looked at me with those pale eyes, and for the first time, I saw something like sympathy. Because your bloodline has been tied to this mountain for 3 generations, Marcus. Your grandfather worked here in 1962. Your father was conceived here. The mountain knows your blood. It's been calling you since you were born. Night 3 continued. The bloodline. I stared at Aldrich, my mind reeling. My grandfather? That's impossible. He was a fisherman. He died on a boat near Kodiak in 1975. He died on this mountain in 1964, Aldrich said quietly. He went up. They all go up eventually. The fishing boat story was what we told your grandmother. It was kinder. I shook my head. My father never mentioned. Your father was 3 years old when your grandfather took this job. He doesn't remember. But the mountain remembers. It's been waiting for another Chen ever since. I sank into one of the sheet-covered chairs, dust billowing around me. The leather creaked like old bones. Why didn't you tell me this before? Would you have taken the job if I had? I thought about the debt, the child support, Mia's face. Probably, I admitted. Aldrich nodded. Desperation is the mountain's recruiting tool. It finds people at their lowest and offers them a lifeline, the pay, the isolation, the simplicity of rules. By the time they understand the truth, they're already bound. How do I get out? You survive until spring, April 15th. The moment the first wildflower blooms in the valley below, the contract ends. You walk away, you never come back. You live your life and try to forget. And if I don't survive? Aldrich's face darkened. Then the door opens a little wider. More things leak through, and eventually enough caretakers fail that the seal breaks entirely. The thing at the top of the mountain comes down, and everything within 100 miles dies. I thought about Mia, about Dana, about Anchorage, Juneau, all the little towns scattered across the inside passage. What is it? I whispered. The thing at the top. Aldrich was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely audible. We call her the matriarch. She was here before humans, before the land. She's not alive, not in any way we understand. She's more like a hunger, a cold, eternal hunger that wears the mountain like a coat. The Dena'ina used to sacrifice travelers to keep her sleeping. When they stopped, she started calling people up herself. The music, the voices, my daughter's voice. Lures. She reads your memories and plays them back, twisted just enough to make you follow. She's been perfecting it for 10,000 years. I looked at the fireplace. The copper bowl gleamed in the grey daylight. The water, I said. What drinks from it? The small ones, the fragments that slip through the cracks. They're bound to the bowl. They can only take what's offered. It keeps them from taking other things. And the thing in the basement? Aldrich's expression shifted. Something like fear flickered across his ageless features. The warden. It was human once. The first caretaker who tried to fight back. He went up the mountain with a rifle and a Bible and came back, changed. Now it guards the door from this side. It can't leave the basement, but it can reach into your mind. The name it tries to give you is its original name. If you speak it, you become the next warden. I remembered the name that had risen in my thoughts. The old name. The one that tasted like smoke and grave dirt. I almost said it, I admitted. I know, but you didn't. That's why you might survive. He stood, brushing invisible dust from his suit. I have to go. The rules bind me too. I can't be here after sunset, but I'll return when I can. Follow the protocols, trust the rules, and whatever you do, don't go up the mountain. He nodded. Don't go up the mountain. He walked to the front doors, opened them onto the grey afternoon, and stepped outside. This time, I watched him go. He walked across the parking lot, his footprints appearing in the fresh snow, and disappeared into the tree line. Real, physical, human, or close enough. I was alone again. Night 4, the children. 3 weeks passed. I fell into a rhythm. Water in the bowl, heating checks, count the ski lift chairs. Don't look at windows facing the mountain. Don't respond to the woman in blue. Don't open room 217. Don't say the name. I read every book in my quarters. I exercised in the empty lobby, doing push-ups and sit-ups on the cold wooden floor. I talked to myself just to hear a human voice. The entities tested me constantly. The woman appeared every night, varying her approach. Sometimes she was pleading. Sometimes she was seductive. Once she looked exactly like Dana, wedding dress and all, and asked me to dance with her in the snow. I didn't respond. The thing in the basement grew bolder too. It started speaking during every check, not just in whispers but in full sentences. It told me about my grandfather, about how he'd been a good man, a kind man, and how he'd screamed for 3 days when the matriarch took him apart at the summit. It described the process in loving detail. I stopped listening. I hummed songs from my childhood, sea shanties my mother used to sing, and made my notes in the logbook and got out before the door locked. The ballroom played music every night. I stuffed cotton in my ears. Then came the new moon. Rule 12. Once per week, typically during a new moon, you will hear children laughing outside. Ignore them. There have never been children at this resort. I'd been dreading this one. I had a daughter. I couldn't hear children's laughter and not think of Mia. The sound started around 11 hours p.m. High, bright giggles drifting up from somewhere outside. It sounded like a playground, like recess at an elementary school, like pure, innocent joy. I covered my ears, but the sound seemed to bypass them. It went straight into my brain, tickling the parts that remembered Mia's first steps, her first words, the way she laughed when I made funny faces. "Daddy, come play with us." Multiple voices now. Children calling for their father. "Daddy, we found something cool. Come see." I pressed my palms harder against my skull. "Daddy, she's hurting us. Please help." Screaming now. Children screaming in terror and pain. I ran to the window, the east-facing window, away from the mountain, and looked out. Nothing. Just snow and darkness and the empty expanse of forest. But the screaming continued. It was coming from everywhere and nowhere, from inside the walls, from under the floor, from inside my own chest. "Daddy, please. She's taking us apart. She's eating us," I screamed back. a wordless howl of anguish and rage. I punched the wall until my knuckles bled. I fell to the floor and sobbed. At 2 a.m., the screaming stopped. At 2:01 a.m., the ski lift started. I counted the chairs through tears, my voice hoarse. 1, 2, 3. Clunk. Whir. Clunk. 14, 15, 16. Something was different tonight. The chairs sounded heavier, like they were carrying weight. I didn't look. 31, 32, 33. A child's voice drifted down from the mountain. Daddy, I'm on the lift. Come ride with me. 38, 39. Daddy, I can see the top. It's so pretty. You have to see. 42, 43, 44. Silence, but then clunk. 45. My blood froze. The rule said exactly 44. If I counted more or fewer, I couldn't leave my quarters until sunrise. Clunk. 46. Clunk. 47. The lift kept running, chair after chair, passing the tower with that rhythmic groan. 50, 60, 70. I backed away from the window and pressed myself into the corner farthest from any exterior wall. I pulled my knees to my chest and made myself as small as possible. The counting stopped at 2:17. Then, silence. I stayed in that corner until dawn, not moving, barely breathing. When the first grey light touched the window, I finally uncurled. There was a photograph on my pillow that hadn't been there before. It was old, black and white, curling at the edges. It showed a man standing at the base of a ski lift, smiling at the camera. He wore a parka and held ski poles. Behind him, the lift chairs rose up the mountain into fog. The man was my grandfather. On the back, written in faded ink, "Almost there. See you at the top. Harold Chen, December 1963. Night 5, The Crack." I found the second journal 3 days later. It was hidden in the basement, stuffed into a gap behind one of the massive pipes. I only found it because I dropped my flashlight during the 1 a.m. check, and it rolled into the shadows where the warden usually lurked. I almost left it. But the warden wasn't there that night, first time since I'd arrived, and some desperate curiosity drove me forward. The journal was newer than the first one. The handwriting was neat, precise. October 2019. My name is Daniel Kowalski. This is my record, the Kowalski from the personnel files, the one who terminated in January 2020. Day 1. Arrived at Whitefall. Mr. Vance seems trustworthy. The rules are bizarre, but I've seen worse in the military. Afghanistan had more confusing ROE than this place. I can handle 6 months of weird. Day 7. The woman in blue is persistent. She knows about my sister, Amy. How? I haven't talked to Amy in 3 years, not since she relapsed. Day 15. Found the old journal behind the reception desk. Jesus Christ, how many people have died here? The filing cabinets are even worse. Decades of caretakers, all terminated. I'm going to survive this. I have to. Amy needs rehab money and the VA won't cover it. I flipped forward, my hands trembling. Day 43. The rules are starting to make sense. This place isn't haunted, it's a prison. The things here aren't ghosts, they're inmates. The rules are their chains. As long as I follow protocol, they can't touch me. Day 67. I heard Amy's voice coming from room 217. She was crying. She said she OD'd and she needed me to come, hold her hand while she died. I said the mountain is closed 3 times and went back to my quarters. I cried all night, but I didn't open the door. Day 89, January 3rd. Something is different. The rules are changing. I found a new one written on my bathroom mirror when I woke up. Rule 16. If you see a crack in the sky, do not look away. If you look away, you will forget what you are. The entries became more frantic after that. Day 90. The crack is there. I see it through every window now. A thin line of light where the sky should be solid. Like reality has a seam and something is pressing against it from the other side. Day 91. I looked away, just for a second. Now I can't remember my sister's face. I know I have a sister. I know her name is Amy, but when I try to picture her, there's just static. Day 92. I looked away again. I can't remember why I'm here. I can't remember what I'm supposed to be doing. There are rules on a paper, but they don't make sense anymore. Why would I count ski lift chairs? That's crazy. Day 93. A woman is waving to me from the mountain. She looks familiar. I think she might be my sister. I'm going to go talk to her. The final entry was just 2 words. She's beautiful. I closed the journal and sat in the darkness of the basement for a long time. The warden appeared behind me. I felt it more than saw it, a weight in the air, a pressure against my sanity. Daniel said my name, it whispered. Right before the end, he said it so easily, so gratefully. It was a relief for him, to stop being Daniel, to stop remembering. I'm not Daniel, I said. No, you're Marcus. You're the grandson of Harold. You're the one who killed Sarah Holloway and drove away. You're the one whose daughter cries for him every night. You're the one who will eventually go up the mountain, just like all the others. I won't. The warden laughed. It was a sound like breaking bones. You will, because she knows your name too, and she's so very patient. I left the basement as the door began to close. I made it with 2 seconds to spare. Day 6. The radio December came with a blizzard that buried the parking lot under 4 feet of snow. I had to dig out the path to the maintenance shed just to get to the generator. That's when I remembered the radio. Rule 9. The emergency radio connects to the ranger station in Girdwood. Use it only for genuine emergencies. I hadn't used it yet. I'd been afraid of Ranger Kowalski, the dead one from 1987. But I needed to hear a human voice, a real one. Someone from the outside world who could confirm that reality still existed beyond this frozen nightmare. The radio was an old short-wave unit, military surplus by the look of it. I powered it on and tuned to the emergency frequency, static. Then a voice. Girdwood Ranger Station. This is a recorded message. Due to severe weather conditions, all backcountry areas are closed until further notice. If this is an emergency, please state your name and location and remain on frequency. A recording, better than nothing. This is Marcus Chen at Whitefall Mountain Resort, mile marker 47 off the Richardson Highway. I'm the winter caretaker. I need to know someone's out there. Static. Then a different voice. Live. Human. Whitefall? Jesus Christ, someone actually took that job? I almost wept with relief. Yes, I've been here since October. Who is this? Ranger Peters. I'm the only one on duty right now. Everyone else is handling the storm response in Valdez. You okay up there? Define okay, I said, laughing shakily. The rules are intense. A long pause. You know about the rules. I've been following them. Thank God. The last guy didn't call in until it was too late. By the time we got a team up there in spring, there was nothing left. Just his boots by the ski lift and blood on the snow. Daniel Kowalski. You found his records. I found his journal. He went up the mountain. Ranger Peters sighed heavily. They always do. The mountain gets in their heads, shows them things, makes them think the answers are at the top. There are no answers up there, Marcus, just her. You know about the matriarch? Every ranger in this district knows. We've been dealing with Whitefall since the 60s. The Vance family built that place as a containment facility, not a resort. The skiing was just a cover. The real purpose was to maintain the seal. Aldrich told me. Aldrich is complicated. He's been there since the beginning. Some people say he's part of the seal himself. Some say he made a deal with her. I don't know what's true. I just know he keeps the caretakers coming and the rules enforced. I hesitated. He told me about my grandfather, Harold Chen. Silence on the other end. Peters, you there? I'm here. His voice was careful now. Harold Chen was before my time, but I've read the files. He was one of the good ones. Lasted almost a full winter. Then the matriarch showed him his wife, your grandmother, at the summit. He went up to save her. She was never there. I closed my eyes. How do I survive this? Follow the rules. Don't trust anything you see or hear that isn't in the protocols. And whatever you do, Marcus, don't let her show you your daughter. The transmission cut to static. I tried to raise him again, but the frequency was dead. Just white noise and the howling wind. Night 6, the crack in the sky. I saw it for the first time that night. I was doing the 1 a.m. heating check, walking through the lobby toward the basement, when something made me look up. The skylight above the fireplace, a massive panel of reinforced glass, showed the night sky for the first time since the blizzard started. The clouds had parted, and there, running diagonally across the stars like a wound in the fabric of existence, was a crack. It was thin, no wider than my little finger, but it glowed with a sickly yellow-green light. The edges flickered and pulsed. As I watched, the crack seemed to widen slightly, and through it I glimpsed something moving, something vast and pale, pressing against the barrier between worlds. Rule 16. If you see a crack in the sky, do not look away. The rule from Daniel's journal, the one that hadn't been on my original list. I stared at the crack. I didn't blink. My eyes burned and watered, but I kept them fixed on that impossible seam. The something on the other side pressed harder. I could make out details now. A face, if you could call it that. Too many eyes, no mouth. A pale, elongated shape that might have been a head or might have been a hand. It saw me looking. I felt its attention like a physical weight, pressing down on my skull. My nose started bleeding. My ears rang with a sound like 1,000 voices screaming in harmony. Marcus David Chen, the voices said. We see you. We have always seen you. Your bloodline is written in our book. Your grandfather's screams still echo in our halls. Your daughter's soul is already promised. I kept staring. Tears and blood ran down my face. Look away, little watcher. Forget. It's easier to forget. Forget your name. Forget your daughter. Forget what you did to Sarah Holloway. Look away and be free. No, I whispered. The crack pulsed. The thing behind it slammed against the barrier, and the whole sky seemed to shudder. You cannot watch forever. Eventually you will sleep. Eventually you will blink. And when you do, we will take everything you love. I stared until dawn. 6 hours without blinking, without looking away, without letting the crack leave my sight. By the time the sun rose and the clouds rolled back in, my eyes were so dry they felt like sandpaper. But I remembered everything. I remembered my name. I remembered Mia. I remembered what I was fighting for. Night 7. The new rules. January arrived with temperatures that dropped to 40 below. The cold was so intense that the windows developed frost on the inside, and the heating system ran constantly, its ancient pipes groaning like tortured souls. I'd been at Whitefall for 3 months, 93 days of following rules, counting chairs, feeding water to things I couldn't see, and trying not to go insane. I was winning, barely. The entities had grown more aggressive. The woman in the blue parka now appeared multiple times per night, each appearance more desperate than the last. She'd stopped pretending to be a stranded hiker. Now she just stood at the window, pressing her palms against the glass, her mouth opening and closing in silent screams. The thing in the basement had started leaving gifts on the stairs. Small bones arranged in patterns, teeth that looked human. Once, a photograph of Mia that couldn't possibly exist. It showed her at an age she hadn't reached yet, maybe 12 or 13, standing in front of a house I didn't recognize. On the back, in that same elegant handwriting, This is where she'll live after you're gone. I burned the photograph in the wood stove and didn't sleep for 2 days. But the worst change was the rules themselves. They were evolving. I found the first new rule scratched into my bathroom mirror on January 4th. Rule 16. If you see a crack in the sky, do not look away. If you look away, you will forget what you are. I'd already learned that one from Daniel's journal, but seeing it appear on my mirror, carved into the glass by something that had been in my quarters while I slept, made my skin crawl. January 7th brought another one, written in frost on my window. Rule 17. The matriarch's daughter walks the halls between 3 hours and 4 a.m. She appears as a child. She will ask you to play. Agree to one game only. If you win, she will answer one question truthfully. If you lose, she will take one memory. Do not play more than once per week. I didn't know what to make of this one. Was it a trap? A genuine opportunity? I filed it away and kept following the original protocols. January 12th, a new rule appeared in the logbook in the basement, written in what looked like old blood. Rule 18. The warden can be bargained with. It hungers for names, not just its own, but the names of others who have failed. Speak a previous caretaker's full name, and it will answer one question, but every name spoken strengthens it. I thought about Harold Chen, about Daniel Kowalski, about all the names in those personnel files. I didn't use this rule. Not yet. January 15th brought the most disturbing addition. I found it carved into the wooden frame of my bed. Rule 19. On the night of the winter solstice, the door opens fully for exactly 7 minutes. During this time, you may enter the mountain. During this time, she may exit. Choose wisely, Marcus. The winter solstice had already passed. December 21st. I'd spent that night huddled in my quarters, counting ski lift chairs, listening to the music from the ballroom. Had the door opened? Had something come through while I counted? I checked the calendar. The next significant date was the spring equinox, March 20th. Still 2 months away, but the rules mention another event, one that happened weekly. Rule 12, the new moon. The next new moon was January 21st, 6 days away. I started preparing. Night 8, the daughter's game, January 17th, 3:00 a.m. I was in my quarters, waiting. The wood stove crackled. My knife sat on the table beside me. I'd moved the dresser away from the door. Rule 17. The matriarch's daughter walks the halls between 3 and 4 a.m. I heard footsteps first. Small footsteps, like a child padding down the corridor in bare feet. Then humming. A simple melody. Something that sounded like a nursery rhyme, but in a language I didn't recognize. A knock at my door. Soft, polite. Hello? A little girl's voice, high and sweet. Is someone in there? I'm lonely. Will you play with me? I stood, heart pounding. This could be a trap. Everything in this place was a trap. But the rules said she would answer one question truthfully. I opened the door. She was small, maybe 6 or 7, with long dark hair that hung past her shoulders and skin so pale it seemed to glow. She wore a white nightgown, old-fashioned, with lace at the collar and cuffs. Her feet were bare, and they left wet prints on the wooden floor. Her eyes were wrong. They were too large, too dark, and they didn't reflect the light from my wood stove. When she smiled, her teeth were small and sharp, like a baby shark's. You opened the door. She clapped her hands, delighted. Nobody opens the door anymore. They're all so scared. But you're not scared, are you, Marcus? I'm terrified, I admitted, but I need answers. Answers cost games. She tilted her head and her neck bent too far, like a broken doll's. One game. If you win, I tell you something true. If I win, I take something you remember. Deal? What kind of game? I like riddles. She grinned wider. I'll ask one. You have 3 guesses. Fair? Nothing about this was fair. but I nodded. She clasped her hands behind her back and began to sway slightly, like a child reciting for a class. I am not alive, but I grow. I don't have lungs, but I need air. I don't have a mouth, but water kills me. What am I? I knew this one. It was an old riddle, common in children's puzzle books. Fire, I said. Her face fell. For a moment, something ancient and terrible flickered behind those dark eyes. Rage, hunger, disappointment. Then she smiled again, and she was just a little girl in a nightgown. Clever Marcus, you win, she sighed dramatically. One question. Make it good. I can't lie, but I can choose not to answer if the question is boring. I'd been thinking about this for days. What did I need to know most? How to survive? How to escape? What was at the top of the mountain? But there was only one question that really mattered. How do I destroy the seal without releasing the matriarch? The girl's eyes widened. Her smile vanished. That's not a boring question, she said slowly. That's a very interesting question. Very dangerous. Can you answer it? She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was different. Older, deeper, resonant with something that had existed for millennia. The seal cannot be destroyed without release, but it can be transferred. The mountain is a doorway. The resort is a lock. The caretaker is the key. If the key breaks, the lock fails. But if the key is removed and placed in a new lock, a new location, I breathed, I could move the seal. You could move her prison, somewhere else, somewhere isolated, somewhere without people to hear her call. The girl smiled again, and this time it was almost kind. But the cost is the same. A key must remain. A witness must watch, forever. Someone would have to stay. Someone would have to become part of the new lock, just like Aldrich became part of this one. I stared at her. Aldrich is part of the seal. Aldrich was the first caretaker, she said. The first one to survive a full winter. The first one to understand. He made a deal with my mother, his soul for the mountain's containment. He's been here ever since, not alive, not dead, just watching. The implications hit me like a physical blow. Aldrich hadn't just been recruiting caretakers, he'd been waiting for someone who could take his place. Is that what he wants from me? To become the new lock? The girl shook her head. Time's up, one question only. But I like you, Marcus, so I'll give you this for free. She leaned close, her breath cold as winter wind. My mother is afraid of something. There's a name she can't hear, a word that burns her. It's carved on the foundation stone of this building. Find it before the equinox, or she'll take your daughter, regardless of what you do. Then she turned and skipped down the hallway, humming that strange nursery rhyme, and disappeared into the darkness. I didn't sleep. I spent the rest of the night searching for the foundation stone. Day 9, the foundation. The basement was the obvious place to start, but the warden made that difficult. During daylight hours, the basement was locked. No automatic access like during the heating checks, and even if I could get in, the warden was always there, always watching, always whispering names. I searched the rest of the building instead. The lobby, the kitchen, the sealed corridors I wasn't supposed to enter. I found it in the boiler room, adjacent to the main basement, a separate entrance through the maintenance shed that I hadn't known existed. The door was hidden behind a rack of old ski equipment, and it opened onto a narrow staircase that descended into darkness. The foundation stone was at the bottom. It was massive, a single slab of granite, roughly hewn, clearly older than anything else in the resort. Pre-contact, maybe. Indigenous. The Denaina had known about this mountain long before white men built their lodge on top of it. Carved into the stone, in letters that seemed to shift and writhe when I looked at them directly, was a word. It wasn't in English. It wasn't in any language I recognized. But somehow, looking at it, I knew how to pronounce it. Nakeltani. The word tasted strange on my tongue, like metal and snow and something burning. As soon as I spoke it, the temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. The stone cracked, a thin fissure running through the carved letters, and somewhere far above me, on the summit of the mountain, something screamed. It was a sound of pure rage and pain, so loud that it shook dust from the ceiling and made my ears bleed. It went on and on, echoing through the stone, through the walls, through my bones. Then silence. I climbed back up the stairs, my legs shaking. I emerged into the maintenance shed and found Aldrich waiting for me. His face was pale, paler than usual, and his eyes blazed with something I'd never seen in them before. Fear. "What did you do?" he demanded. "I found a name. You spoke it." He grabbed my shoulders, his fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. "You spoke her true name. Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I hurt her." "You woke her up." Aldrich shoved me backward. "She was dormant, contained. The seal was holding. Now she's aware. Now she's hunting. And she knows exactly where to find you." "Good," I said, surprising myself with the steel in my voice. "Let her come. I'm done hiding. I'm done following rules that were designed to keep her comfortable in her prison. I want to end this." Aldrich stared at me. Something shifted in his expression, the fear fading, replaced by something like wonder. "You're different," he said slowly. "The others broke. They went up the mountain begging for mercy. But you're actually fighting. My grandfather fought. Daniel Kowalski fought. They just didn't know how. And you do." I thought about the little girl's words. The seal could be transferred, the key could be moved, but someone would have to stay. "I'm working on it," I said. "I need more time." Aldrich studied me for a long moment, then he nodded. "The equinox, that's when the door opens widest. If you're going to do something, that's when it has to happen." He paused. "I've been the lock for 67 years, Marcus. I'm tired. So tired. If you can find another way." "I'll try," I promised. He smiled, a real smile, for the first time since I'd met him. It made him look almost human. "I'll hold her as long as I can. But after the equinox, I can't guarantee anything. She's going to throw everything she has at you." "I know. Follow the rules. They'll keep you alive long enough to make your move." He walked out of the maintenance shed, into the grey afternoon light, and disappeared into the swirling snow. I had 2 months to figure out how to cage a god. Night 9. The new moon. January 21st. The new moon. I was ready. I'd spent the days since finding the foundation stone preparing. I'd memorized every rule, original and new. I'd mapped every inch of the resort I could access. I'd read both journals cover to cover, extracting every piece of useful information, and I'd made a decision. The seal couldn't be destroyed without releasing the matriarch, but it could be transferred, moved to a new location. The little girl had said it required a willing sacrifice, someone to become the new lock. But what if the new location was somewhere the matriarch couldn't reach? What if I could trap her somewhere smaller, somewhere contained, somewhere with no mountain to call from and no witnesses to corrupt? What if I could put her in a box? The idea was insane, but I was running out of sane options. The children's laughter started at 11 p.m. I'd been expecting it. New moon, just like the rule said. But this time, instead of hiding in my quarters, I went to the window. They were out there, dozens of them. Children playing in the snow, building snowmen, throwing snowballs, laughing with pure, innocent joy. They weren't real. They had never been children at this resort, but they looked real. They sounded real, and one of them looked exactly like Mia. She was playing at the edge of the group, near the tree line. She wore her purple coat, the one Dana had bought her for Christmas 2 years ago, and her blonde hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She was building a snow angel, lying on her back, waving her arms and legs. "Mia," I whispered. She sat up and looked directly at my window. She smiled. "Daddy!" She stood and ran toward the lodge. The other children parted for her, Still laughing, still playing. Daddy, come outside, come play with us. I pressed my hand against the glass. You're not Mia. I am. I'm your daughter. Mom and I came to surprise you. She was at the window now, her face inches from the glass. Her breath should have fogged it. It didn't. Please come out, Daddy. I missed you so much. My daughter is in Juneau, with her mother. Safe. Her face flickered. For a moment, I saw something else behind those familiar features, something old and hungry and infinitely patient. She could be here, the thing wearing Mia's face said. She could be here with you forever. All you have to do is come outside. All you have to do is open the door. No, open the door, Marcus. The voice changed. It was no longer a child's voice. It was the voice from the crack in the sky, the voice of the matriarch, layered and terrible. Open the door and I will spare her. Refuse and I will bring her here. I will make her watch while I take you apart. I will feed her to my children. I stared at the thing, pretending to be my daughter. I thought about everything I'd lost, everything I'd sacrificed, everything I was fighting for. Nakeltani, I said. The creature screamed. Its form wavered, the illusion of Mia dissolving into smoke and shadows. The other children screamed too, their voices harmonizing into a single agonizing wail. Then they were gone. The snow where they had been playing was pristine, untouched, no footprints, no snow angels, just the empty parking lot and the silent trees and the stars wheeling overhead. I'd hurt her again. I'd used the name, but I could feel her rage building. She was coming. Not now, not tonight, but soon. Night 10, February. The weeks blurred together. I followed the rules. I survived. I planned. I found old maps of Alaska in the resort's office, detailed geological surveys from the 1940s and 50s. I searched for somewhere remote, somewhere isolated, somewhere that could serve as a new prison. I found it in the Aleutian Islands, a volcanic rock called Kagamil Island, uninhabited, inaccessible for most of the year, the site of an ancient village that the Unangan people had abandoned centuries ago after what their oral histories described as the sleeping hunger beneath the stone. Another doorway, another place where the barrier between worlds was thin, but smaller, contained. An island prison instead of a mountain fortress. If I could transfer the seal to Kagamil, the matriarch would be trapped on a rock in the middle of the Bering Sea. No ski lifts, no ballrooms, no children to hear her call, no caretakers to corrupt. But someone would have to take the seal there. Someone would have to become the new Locke. I kept thinking about Aldrich. 67 years, he'd said. 67 years as a living prison door. Could I do that? Could I give up everything, Mia, Dana, the outside world, to trap this thing forever? The answer came to me on February 14th, Valentine's Day. I'd been doing the 1 a.m. heating check when the warden spoke to me. Not in whispers this time. In clear, conversational English. You're planning something, Marcus Chen. I didn't respond. I checked the gauges, made my note. I've watched 100 caretakers. I know the signs, the research, the determination. You think you can beat her? I still didn't respond. You can't. No one can. She's older than the mountains, older than the ice. She was here before humans crawled out of Africa. She'll be here after your species is dust. I turned to face the thing in the corner. It had taken a new form, my grandfather's form, Harold Chen, just as he appeared in the photograph. But the eyes were wrong, empty sockets filled with something that moved. What do you want? I asked. The same thing you want, freedom. The Harold thing smiled with my grandfather's face. I was the first caretaker to fail, the first one to say the name. I've been here ever since, feeding on scraps, watching the others come and go. I'm so tired, Marcus. So tired of being the warden. What are you offering? Information. Real information. The kind Aldrich won't give you because he doesn't know it. In exchange for what? The Harold thing leaned forward. A name. Not mine. I'll never ask for that. But one of the others. One of the caretakers who failed. Speak their name, and I'll tell you how to transfer the seal. I thought about it. The rule had said speaking names strengthened the warden, but it also said the warden would answer questions. Daniel Kowalski, I said. The warden shuddered with pleasure. Its form flickered, becoming more solid, more real. Yes, Daniel. He was so scared at the end. He thought his sister was waiting for him at the summit. He climbed for 3 hours in the dark, calling her name. The information, I pressed. The seal is bound to 3 things: the mountain, the building, the bloodline. The warden's voice dropped lower. The mountain can't be moved, but the building can be replaced, and the bloodline can be redirected. What does that mean? Your grandfather didn't just die here, Marcus. He was absorbed. His soul became part of the seal. Your father carried a fragment of that seal with him when he left. And you carry it too. You're already part of the lock. You have been since birth. The implications hit me like a punch to the gut. That's why she can reach me, why she knows about Mia. The connection goes both ways. Yes, you're bound to her just as she's bound to the mountain, but that bond can be severed. If you transfer the seal to a new location, a new doorway, your bloodline's connection transfers too. And Mia? Your daughter would be free, forever. No more Chen souls for the matriarch to claim. I stared at the thing wearing my grandfather's face. What's the catch? Someone has to remain as the new lock, just as Aldrich did, just as I did. I know that. But it doesn't have to be you. The warden smiled. There's another option, a loophole in the old laws. If you can convince the matriarch herself to enter the new prison, if you can trick her into crossing the threshold willingly, the seal inverts. She becomes the lock. She traps herself. I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. How do I trick a god? You give her what she wants most. The warden's smile widened. She wants out, Marcus. She wants to walk the world again. She's been trapped here for 10,000 years. If you show her a door that leads somewhere else, somewhere open, she won't be able to resist. She'll walk through, and when she does, the new seal activates, and she spends eternity on a rock in the Bering Sea, screaming at an empty sky. I laughed. It was a sharp, desperate sound. You're asking me to open a door for an eldritch god and trust that she'll walk into a trap. I'm asking you to believe that her hunger is greater than her wisdom. She's been patient for millennia, but patience has limits, and you've been making her very, very angry. I thought about the name. Nakeltani. Every time I spoke it, she screamed. Every time I spoke it, the seal cracked a little more. What if I could use that? What if I could make her so angry, so desperate to destroy me, that she chased me right into a new prison? I need to get to Kagamil Island, I said. Aldrich can help with that. He's been waiting for someone like you, someone willing to do what needs to be done. What about you? What happens to you if I succeed? The warden was quiet for a moment. When it spoke again, its voice was soft, almost gentle. I don't know. Maybe I'll finally be free. Maybe I'll just stop existing. Either way, it's better than this. I nodded. Thank you for the information. Thank me when it works, grandson. I left the basement as the door began to close. The thing wearing my grandfather's face watched me go with empty, hungry eyes.